Hey, I'm Titus, Democratic nominee for Erie County Executive. We're down here in Corry today. We got to knock a bunch of doors. It's been amazing. We also got to sit down with several people who are building the initiative and part of the momentum of things that are happening down here in Corry. But why I'm down here is I wanted to give you a little bit of background on who I am and why I'm running for county executive. My story starts down in Titusville, where I was born into rural poverty. I watched as my parents struggled to keep a roof over our head, as they found different jobs as the industry left. My father, who was a Marine, came back to struggle and find work, eventually started work on a dairy farm. I watched as my stepfather, who had dropped out of high school in 10th grade to take over the logging business with his family, beat up his body to keep a roof over our head. My mother, who eventually went back to become a nurse, is still on the front lines now. At the age of 16, my parents became foster parents, and I learned a completely different side of county government. I saw what happens when the county works for you and when the county forgets about you. We've got a lot of work we've got to cover, and that is why I have built a 3-pillar plan that focuses on putting working families first, creating a healthier and safer community by investing in our human services, and making sure that we've got quality education that ties it all together. From investing in broadband to roads, bridges, and creating that connectivity, to investing in small businesses, entrepreneurship, and making sure that our families don't just pass through, but they build and their children stay, and they've got a green, environmentally sustainable future here. This is our county, and I'm fighting for it. I'm fighting for you. So please, on November 2nd, consider me as your next county executive.
So why don't we drill down on the 3 areas you're focused on and talk a little more about each?
Absolutely. So when we're looking at building an economy that puts the working class first, here what we're seeing when I go around and talk to a lot of businesses, one of the big things is we can't get people to come back to work. So I dove in even more and be like, okay, so what are the barriers? Barriers being, well, there's a lot. One, a big one being transportation. Here's an example out here in Corry. We've got a couple bus routes that come out here, but I think the county has got to get creative on how do we help that. We've not maximized or reached our full potential in being able to help people get across the county. The other is childcare services. They're expensive. We know a lot of parents want to get back to work, aren't able to get back to work. Maybe one is working just to pay for childcare. So how do we maximize there? We also know that the data and research shows us the earlier we invest from 0 to 3, it pays out dividends in the long run. So the quicker we can get in there with quality, like the CDC child development centers that's state and federally funded, and pull those out through different spots, we show big dividends later in life for people. We're reducing drug addiction, we're reducing high violent crime, we're increasing the likelihood that they're going to stay in school less truant. So it shows big improvement there, while also making sure that we've got our job field has shifted a lot. So I'm a big believer in the community college and its ability to shift with the jobs that are needed or are coming to an area. And so that's another big barrier is we have people who haven't had access to new skill set training. So a lot of things going automated. We're moving more into the tech industry, and a lot of people just haven't had access to those trainings. So how do we make sure we get those trainings out here? Mm-hmm. Corry Higher Ed is doing a phenomenal job. Yeah. And they've partnered with the community college. How do we replicate that throughout? I think, again, I keep coming back to Corry because there's so much going right here. How do we make this happen in other places throughout the county? So that's really making sure that the tax burden does not fall disproportionately on low income, fixed income, small businesses, or working class families. So how are we aligning it to make sure that we're not expecting them to fix all of our gaps? Because I think that that's how we've been set up for a long time. And then making sure we've got infrastructure around things like broadband so people can literally log online. We've got huge pockets where they can't throughout the county. Making sure we're focusing on that, especially with however this infrastructure bill is going to fall out, in whatever fashion it comes through, there will be state and federal monies. How do we match it and maximize to get it everywhere? And then we can talk about competition. So bringing in so then we drive rates down. And then when we, look at the health and safety, 80% of the county budget is human services, from the prison to public safety with the dispatcher, to juvenile adult probation, to addiction. So how are we making sure that those who are struggling with whatever reason, with poverty, addiction that leads to a whole lot of other things, get the services they need so they don't end up in the prison. Like that's where we can really, I think, do a huge intervention there. We're seeing a lot of our money spent on the prison, the amount of inmates that are in there, and the recidivism rate is astronomical. It's astronomical. So clearly we've got some disconnect, and I think that we as the county can do a better job of stepping in and helping there. We're also seeing different pockets through rural poverty, and even in some of our urban areas, the life expectancy is very, very, like 10 years lower, depending on what zip code. And it's because they don't have access to various services or the internet to log on when everything had to go virtual, or access to transportation to get places. So how does the county help there so we can improve the health? Again, Corry would be another great example because of the blue zones and some of the other initiatives that have taken place down here. When you invest in the well-being, the economy, everything kind of blossoms around that as well too. And so that's when I'm talking about an economy that puts working class families first. That's what I mean right there. And then human services supplements all of that in. I believe the economy will only be as healthy as the community. So if you've got people who are suffering for whatever reasons, we see that reflected right now in the job force. It'd be it PTSD, be it, we've seen addiction rates go up, we've seen all these things. So where there's a labor shortage and all these things that are happening with that in conjunction. The healthier people are, the more excited and they're able to invest, they're able to re-engage back in the community, they're able to build themselves back up again. Instead of being stuck or dependent, they're able to thrive and build. And then when we look down to it, let me step back up. With the public safety element of it too. What law enforcement and our EMS services are now expected to do, we are burning them out. We're burning them out. They're showing up in places where social workers or crisis workers really should be called in. And then they're spread too thin. They're spread too thin. And so everything's escalated. We've got to do a better job of supporting those who are in those positions. And that's through, again, county services, is making sure we're doing that lift instead of expecting police officers to go into a spot where there's, domestic violence or drug addiction that was started by these things all over here, but now they're intervening over here and they're spread everywhere. And now the only option they have is criminal charges or prison. So I think that that's how the county can help there too. And how we help our frontline and first responders is by making sure we've got better county services out here. Not saying Corry, but I mean all over through the county. And then looking down at the quality education. Erie City has started to embrace the community school model, and I think that that's something that could be replicated throughout. And then the county or the community college is another great example of what happens when people are able to gain access to new skill training. As you see people being able to maneuver, be able to launch their small business that they always wanted to do, now qualify a job that they weren't able to qualify for before. And the workforce development and economic development go hand in hand and really link quite nicely with the community college. But we could also really bolster and support our public school systems through the county. We've seen it working right now in Erie, where we have the dentist, we have the therapist, wherever the kids are or the families are, we meet them there, and it removes a lot of the barriers that they weren't able to get the services that they needed. A kid's not going to be able to pay attention in class if their teeth hurt because they weren't able to get to the dentist. And so like those kind of things is how the county can really assist. And take the burdens again off the schools, because their money is also finite. But when you partner the public and private, they're both able to meet their missions and everyone's moving forward at the same time. So that again is a lot of nuts. So that's kind of like how I break it down more in each of them.
And I had a question sent to me.
Yes, please.
But for someone that could not be here. I know you, from hearing you, here you have 3 focus areas and this is off of it, I get it. But what are your feelings about the involvement of government with green spaces, green energy, investments in that area?
We have to do it. But I really think that the government has to support and protect and elevate green spaces for the community's sake, but then also making sure we still have places. What we saw up in Erie, I'll just take the lake, for example, the amount of pollution that has happened and now spaces that people literally can't build on because there was just so much that happened for so long. There's going to take so much remediation. So we have these beautiful lots that has so much toxins in the land. that nobody can gain access to. Then they've spilled out and people around those areas can't even grow grass in their yard. So I don't think that the government needs to necessarily come in act swinging, but we could be bringing in, especially with this infrastructure bill, jobs that are building into infrastructure that makes sense, that's renewable, that's using, solar power, wind power, high-speed rail, oh my gosh, solar panels, those things is what I think that we could be doing. And those create great jobs. Those create long-term jobs because people are going to have to stay with them and focus and build and fix. So that's where I think the government plays a role in making sure that we're not building with a very small timeline, and we've got to think big picture. We've got a gem of a county. We really do. Let's keep it that way. Let's keep it that way. You name any other county where you can be in an urban core and in 30 minutes be at the most beautiful campground, hiking right on the lake. We've got everything. We really do. So let's protect it. The natural resource, our water. We're up with the seaway where you can, somebody from Florida can literally drive their boat and get to Erie. That's phenomenal. But we've got to protect those. We've got to protect those resources.
And another one that was submitted
Yeah.
early is knowing you have this focus on rural as well as urban. How do you see pulling those communities together in with regional focus?
So I think one example would be just kind of what we're doing here. Me not coming in and be like, this is what I'm going to do in Corry, but coming to your mayor and saying, Mayor, what projects are you working on? How can we supplement? What are you seeing be successful? Where are the gaps? What's missing in funding and resources? What do we've got to do to get you to the next level? And that's the same thing that I've been doing as I've kind of done, talks and just going out, what's missing? Where can we supplement in ways that you simply don't have access to? And building up. We've got to get away from this sense that one person knows everything. We're missing a guest.
Yeah.
But when it comes to rural places and rural spaces, rural communities know what they need most. They do. And it's very different, even addressing rural poverty versus urban poverty. It's very different. It's very different. So how do we go into those areas? If I were to just go knock on somebody's house out here, they're going to be like, literally, who the hell are you and who are you telling me? Versus if I go down to some of the places downtown where there's this trust and this other things that are built, and there's stigma. There's so many areas or layers to this. But when it comes to I'm rambling, but when it comes to this stuff, I really fully believe it's going to the leaders who are there and supporting the solutions that are already being carried out. I very much love your sweater. Very much love your sweater. Yes. Sorry to stop the meeting and call them, but I went right to it.
It's a meeting stop.
It's a good one.
Karen, we're just doing a question period. I know anything from the human services sector that you'd like to?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm sure something will come.
Okay, great. So what I'll do now is I'll roll into what we're doing in Corry.
Okay.
And again, people feel free if there's questions as we go to put them in. I'm not being able to get to my chat box, so you might have to speak up.
If there was one, I guess, and I didn't do a very good job of this, and so I apologize to cut you off too. One example that when it comes to things within rural and how it's different, my mom is a nurse. My stepfather is a logger, and he's been a logger since he was literally 13 years old. When this pandemic hit and the kids weren't able to go to school, it stopped my family dead in their tracks. My mom was supposed to go into work. My dad was the one who was bringing in the money to keep the roof over their head, and now they had a choice. There's no internet. There's no internet where they were. So one of them had to stay back. And so it was a jockeying of resources. Who's driving the kid literally to sit down in McDonald's parking lot so they can log on and turn their school. So there's a lot of elements to this that I don't think I've done a very great job of understanding or explaining. But when it comes to, I wanted to just go back to how it's so different in rural areas versus in urban areas that we've missed the mark on. The county has really missed a mark on, and we've got to step up and shift and do better. There is no one size fits all, but there definitely are ways that we can be plugging in and making sure our urban area or our rural areas aren't left behind, because they have been. And it makes sense that people in rural areas are mad. They should be. they weren't included. They weren't included, and we've got to do better. We've got to do better. All right, and now I'll stop.
It's all
Okay,
good. One thing, I feel that the momentum in Corry is working, partially because so many sectors are working together, and saying, hey, our back's to the wall. We can't wait for solutions. For 10 years, actually now probably 12 years, your Corry 2020, the community said, how can we improve ourselves? From that, a bunch of organizations sprung up, everything from a farmer's market to Corry Neighborhood Initiative that was taking on blight. And the Downtown Business Association started First Fridays. All these things started gaining momentum. Impact Corry previously was a fiscal sponsorship, small project kind of organization. And out of all this effort, they decided to make it more of a community development hub. And there's a great study, the Aspen Institute, about community development hubs. So Impact Corry has influence over nobody. But we have the ability to listen and try to bring people together.
Yes.
So one of the first things on our agenda was there were so many organizations doing great work, but they weren't leveraged, like the work of one helping another. In some cases, they were even siloed, where something's going to happen, but there's a long-term payoff. And if we don't act now, there is an event horizon where small communities like ours go away. So we started this plan, brought together shareholders representing over 50 local organizations, brought a technical team on from the city of Corry, people who have to do the work on the street to advise us from their perspective. And we built a regional advisor committee. People, everyone from advocates to didn't know our names, but they, they have a bigger picture. And they became kind of advisors as we were putting things forward. They didn't say, hey, change your direction. They said, if you're going that way, look at this, this, and this. So they were huge advocates. So we came out of it with the community strategic plan. This was adopted in April of this year. And we are focusing on 5 big areas. This is the executive summary if you want to read like the 74 pages.
Okay.
I got it. So our 5 focus areas are revitalizing and our neighborhoods and housing, improving and linking our green spaces, ramping up our connectivity, activating our city center, and strengthening our city's balance sheet. Now, not only are these important goals for the community, but all of these are interrelated. Revitalizing our housing will bring more people to work, to live and work in the city, which will expand the tax base for the city. They'll be shopping locally, at least partially. That'll be activating downtown. They'll be using our green spaces. So each of these come together to build on the others, as well as they look at what people, the big factors of why people are moving, especially from large areas of population to smaller. All of these things are some of the top items they look for when moving to a rural community. So we're placing ourselves that way, as well as improving the well-being of the people who are here. Also, since we are a development company for the community, there's certain things we can't do, like repaving the streets really isn't on here because that's a city function. So we all decided we will share, we will have our areas of expertise and work in these. So if you shift to this one, this is kind of like a heartbeat document. So it tells you where we are with each. So I'll go through these quickly. There's more detail if you want it later. So strengthening our city's balance sheet. We were thrilled that the city invited citizens in, but they felt like, hey, they represent the citizens. Come on in. So the first things we're helping address is because there's been a tax shortfall year after year after year. The city's been very creative in keeping running and keeping services in place. That said, there's been a lot of property maintenance, road maintenance, other maintenance deferred because the funding was not there. So the first way we saw to help is, I'm a professional fundraiser. We could go after funding to help. So large scale things. So right now we have 400,000 in appropriations that's cleared the House, going to the Senate, or in the Senate actually. And what that would pay for is new generator for the wastewater treatment facility. Right now there's 2 generators, they fail, there are spills, all the corresponding issues. So if this case, we could start the renovation of that system, which is in the planning phase, as well as stop bringing environmental factors into the area. The next is we've applied for a US Department of Transportation raise application, about $4,700,000. And this would pave or resurface 6.1 miles of road in Corry. So the deferred maintenance on the streets, a lot of it could be taken advantage of. We worked with the city to choose those streets, as well as we aligned those streets with our trails priority. And every one of those streets either will have a shared bike lane or a protected bike lane. So we've worked that into the grant as well. Benches, trail dot markers, ways to get people more easily and safely around the city while repaving. We did not end up going for the transportation alternatives. However, there's a multimodal transportation that we're going for again that would work on streetscapes and roads. We've also, the city has an upcoming project for the wastewater treatment facility. Engineers have been working on it. There's numerous versions of how we can do it, but the project ranges, I think it's from 20 million to 40 million. We don't want to raise taxes to do that. So we'd investigated a financing structure called 6320. So far, everything's been cleared as being a sound investment, and we've taken it to the regional economic leaders of Erie. They're investigating right now if it can be coupled with opportunity zone, everything else. But how it works is it invites private investment to pay for the infrastructure. They get their return on investment in 15 to 20 years. Infrastructure lasts 50. As soon as it's paid off, the infrastructure comes back to the municipality. So they have another 30 years of financial income from that infrastructure and wouldn't have to raise taxes to get it done. The other thing that's appealing to investors in this is when they make these types of investments, what they invest is then tax neutral. So that's one way we're doing it. And we're looking for more ways to cross over and help financially. Then there are 2 major assets the city has that that could produce more and contribute, are kind of gems of our area and need to be protected. And each of them creates an extra load on the city. So we're trying to figure out how to raise their use and raise their revenue such that they become what the city needs them to be, as well as it takes some work off of the city. So the first is the North Hills Golf Course, most municipal golf course I've ever seen. And it is based on an aquifer. It can't be developed. It's going to stay the golf course. But essentially right now we get 1 season out of it. So we got funding from Northwest and to pay for an innovation through collaboration project with Penn State Barron Black School of Business. They are currently working with us to develop a business plan for the golf course to make it multimodal, all-season recreation space that brings in more revenue. From virtual or simulated golf, there is a difference. I haven't learned it yet. It's a beautiful old farm, and it has a beautiful old barn, to making that an event space destination. So they're playing golf and talking about what could be done. We're also building a single track and primitive, in some areas, road trail all the way around the golf course to add another loop for people that want to get outdoors and look at it. Also, the Corry Lawrence Airport, right now, the city is working to get that under a new authority. Once that is done, they're going to also start a business planning process. Impact Quarry, we've raised half of the costs of that process, looking to raise the other half and have it in time for the authority to take it over. Then they'll start into that process. Things have come up for this from an idea that literally children could start training in schools. They could graduate high school with the mechanics degree that brings them out at $38,000 a year. And it could be connected to local schools, colleges, and in 2 more years, they could finish their flight degree, and that's another like $20,000 a year bump. So essentially, the airport could be used by these kids training to be mechanics, kids training to be pilots, as well as creating a new educational path that if you're not interested in college, you can still go right into a great career. If you are interested in a little college, you can go into a great career. So those are the areas we're currently helping the city. More and more will be coming to bear on this, but we're doing it in stages. Improve and link our green spaces. This map, we are adding, we're adding about 6.1 miles of on-street and off-street trails within our 6-mile city. We're also adding 8 miles of Erie to Pittsburgh Trail, continuing south to Spartansburg. About 1.5 of the miles in Corry will be Erie to Pittsburgh Trail. So essentially right now, we're securing properties, we're securing funding. By the end of this December, we will have added 1,400 linear feet of trail. In the city of Corry, our first trail, our first Erie to Pittsburgh Trail in the city. We're also, there is a region up south of downtown that's been highlighted by the DCNR as being not fitting within their plan that every neighborhood is within a 10-minute walk of green spaces. So we've been ground proofing a trail to connect that community down into the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail. We'll be applying for a planning grant for that in the spring. Our champions, our plan takes advantage of champions. Whatever you're interested in is what you volunteer for, and they work crazy hours and crazy amount of bringing their expertise to this project. Our trail champions have starting to become experts. They were asked and they recently presented at the PA Trail Conference about how communities build trails and building the trails build community. We also are serving on the county committee to investigate the alternate southern route trail. So right now the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail goes up and through New York State and down, and then we'll have a trailhead right across the street here. This one will come actually the whole way through the county along a trail line. So they're investigating that. That one will also end right here in Corry. So they're also serving on that. Recently, LECOM called us. They have senior housing up by the hospital. They want to put in trails. So our trail champions went there to advise them. 2 trail loops will be going in this fall, and one that requires more planning will be going in a successive year. So it's truthfully bringing that expertise here. We're going to be able to do more and more. Also with this, we have a local group called Hiram and Hill. That's a blight fighting committee. They've been expanded to trails. 2 weeks ago, we were up at the golf course cutting down trees. So people are showing up to do the work. Then activate our city center. We are very lucky to have a First Fridays that's taken off. People come here for it. It's a big deal.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I've been on several.
But we need to ramp it up more. So as you see from this map, the circle around Route 6, people could drive right past here and never see Corry and think they have. So this is an area we're starting work, talking with PennDOT How do we make that intersection something that lets you know you're missing something a mile south?
Mhm.
Then the dotted line coming down North Center. After Route 6, that's our highest trafficked area. So that gateway needs to be invested in. It needs to look like the best town ever.
Mhm.
So people coming here will say, wow, I'm going to come back here. I want to, how much is a house here? You know,
Mhm.
that kind of
Mhm.
thing. Then the pink area right downtown, basically for those on the phone, from City Park to the city building, the 2 blocks of Main Street, and right along North Center are going to be our downtown area of focus. If you look at the front of our building, you'll see our building is one of the ones getting a facade lift right now. But there's about 16 buildings right now through an ECR grant that are getting or have gotten facelifts. We are trying to make the exterior beautiful. We're also starting to do an asset inventory. So every commercial space in that area, we're trying to document.
Okay.
So we can advertise. Are you looking for 20,000 square feet with a pizza oven? Well,
Mhm.
here's where it is in Corry.
Mhm.
Here's who to contact. Here's the rent. Here are photos. So we're trying to make this asset inventory to bring more business here and also let people who are here expand. We're also working with the high ed. The high ed's taking the lead on building an entrepreneurial ecosystem downtown. We've been supporting downtown businesses through a thing called Third Thursdays, which is information about anything about running a business and the community that our local entrepreneurs have asked for. That's being taken over by Hyatt as well. We're going to be looking to doing microloans. The Hyatt's already doing business training, business launching, so that will expand. Also, this.
Somebody got kicked.
Oh,
Sorry, I just
Oh,
saw the
oh,
little blue.
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. This is why I need help. There we go. So it's on here, but basically the block starting, if you look out the window from the orange building
Mhm.
down to the end of that block, we're talking about developing the 2nd and 3rd floors into housing. We're currently in discussions with the DCED. They're going to be coming back to Corry to investigate and give us strategy to achieve that. So our goal is everything in this pink zone is 100% occupied and thriving in 10 years. Also, we've started the Climax and Corsets Innovation Festival. We are looking to invite artists and innovators to create everything you're going to see in the streetscapes, the kind of the placemaking of our area. And the Corry Rails and Trails Park. So right across the street, you see this area.
Mhm.
We're going to make this into a place where it's going to be like the beating heart, the hearth of Corry, where everyone comes. Everything from water features and event spaces to eventually a pub. So we're working on that. Again, it will be the trailhead for the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail. It will bring that right down to our shops, which
Mhm.
again is another economic development reinforcement. We're starting to be very successful with funding of that. We have just received the last funding we need to do a subsurface engineering of it, so we know it's under there, because no
Mhm.
one does right now.
Mhm.
And to start the engineering work for the building of the park. As soon as that's done, we'll be doing fundraising to start building the park. So it's going to be a huge boom for downtown. Ramp up our connectivity. From what you said, you'll be interested in this. Our first goal was to bring Wi-Fi to our downtown and to bring it free of charge. We were given a CARES Act, $250,000. We brought in the Wi-Fi provider. Through tax credits, they're donating the cost of that free Wi-Fi in our downtown, and that is renewable. So mission complete. The next was universal fiber installation in the city of Corry. Again, we succeeded in getting just under 500,000 from CARES Act. And in a very tight timeline, we designed and purchased all the fiber necessary to install in the city of Corry. because that had a deadline
Mhm.
that everything had to be paid for and received. Done. The whole project's about 2.2 million to wire the city. I'm about 300,000 short right now, but I think I found it. As soon as we have that, it will leverage all the other funding that's waiting, and we could be developing this system by March. So, and with completion within 12 months. So the thing that's beautiful, and you said about rural areas are tricky as far as the providers you're mentioning. Most of the large providers had no interest in building here. And then the model is tough because the idea of bringing additional providers in for competition, no one gets a large enough share of the market in rural areas. So we, when we couldn't get a large provider interested, we shifted to working with a cooperative out of Youngsville. They are a nonprofit and they are invested in bringing fiber to rural areas. So through working with them and with the infrastructure money coming from the federal government, we are going to be able to offer fiber to the home at $25 a month. That's not an introductory offer. That is not a subsidized offer. That is their business model, does not require more than that. There are higher packages you can get, but to bring it to the home with a telephone line at $25 a month is revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, that's an absolute insanity. Like, it's amazing.
Right? And we're proud of that.
Yeah.
And that's been the technology committee because they refused to take no for an answer and just kept looking. It will go to commercial clients starting at $65 a month. Currently, we have people paying $300 a month and the credit card machine won't run, or they can't get into their QuickBooks account. So this is going to be a game changer for Corry. The next goal was to bring connectivity throughout our county. As you said, there's so many pockets, there's not even cell service. So the hotspots are not consistent or often don't work well enough for the students. So we were going to try to piece together different technology, but then the committee said, if we're saying that we deserve fiber, everyone in our school district deserves fiber. That's like a $16 million decision. However, with the federal funding happening as it's happening right now, with the attractiveness of the work with the cooperative, currently we have a 5.75 million request. We've been recommended for funding, so keep your fingers crossed. But what that would do is build a fiber network across unserved and underserved census blocks throughout the entirety of the Union City School District and the Corry area school district, excluding Warren County. And the only reason Warren County is excluded is they're actually using the same model and working with the same company, and they've applied for funding for their entire county. They are also recommended for funding, so hopefully those kids of ours will also get it. But the great thing about this is beyond the prices that we bring to these homes, this company has also agreed that the school districts will decide who would get it. But if a family is in financial need and the 25 is too much, that the company will give free subscriptions to those students, as well as any profits they make over 15% are returned to the community through community benefit dollars. We'll be working together with Union City to point those to technology and economic development projects. So our goal is we'll have an expanse between Warren County and slowly get all the rural communities in Erie County. Maybe they don't have to follow our model exactly, but if we can help them get this rolling, we will. Now, another big part of this is they said, if we're bringing fiber here, there's going to be a fiber node tied to a tier 1 carrier. What that means is lickety split. And it's a commercial opportunity. People would be willing to put businesses here where this exists. So we were looking downtown and they said, no, it has to be a huge facility. There is a 9 years vacant, the former Corry Memorial Hospital. Actually, a local citizen is donating that to the project. And we're building the Corry Area Technology and Center and Hub, or CATCH. And it's going to have a large investment in workforce development through technology. Now think of it, you have that footprint of fiber throughout the entire region, and now you have a technology center serving it, putting content out, giving training, allowing for remote work. So connectivity is really important for us. The railroad lines made us exist because they were business at that point. Fiber optic is the business of now. Stabilization of near downtown blocks. We did a citywide kind of appraisal system of all the housing. Everything was ranked. We've adopted goals that every year we improve X number of homes from this level to this level. We've been very fortunate and received 190,000 over 2 grant cycles from ECRA to do Renaissance block improvements. That's up to a $5,000 match for homeowners to do exterior improvements. Right now, 42 families have been served through those dollars. We're also, a local committee has been developing Paint the Town. This prioritizes seniors, veterans, heads of multi-generational households existing below the poverty level. Literally your neighbors coming and working with you to paint your house, as well as do a refresh on the yard. Yeah. And we have lots of great logos because we have lots of great artists locally. So that's on track to go next spring. We are also working, we have a community called Snyder Circle locally. There's been endemic problems of making them adequate housing for people to feel proud of. We've been developing a plan with the planner of our strategic plan, Charles Buki, and local champions, and that's in the nascent stages, but it looks like we will really be able to improve that area as well. We also work with a bunch of organizations locally, and one of our champions, Brad Russell, he goes forward and gets things done. He has worked with the city to create our blight plan. He's currently working with the city and the school board to present and potentially pass a residential LERTA, which again is another attractive investment opportunity. The land bank was approved here and has been a great partner in this work. And the Community Neighborhood Initiative has been fabulous in that the land bank usually targets vacant homes. CNI will actually work with residents. So if a house is truly unfit, in all cases, they have worked to find a better place for the people living in them and moving that property either into rehabilitation or remediation. We're working on a thing called the Corry Promise, which we don't quite know what it is yet, but it is a promise that if you want to come and live in Corry, we're going to make it easier. It's going to be basically a subsidy program, but whether that subsidy flows for, hey, we'll help you renovate a house, or hey, we'll help offset costs for your business space for X amount of years. But we need to find the triggers that will make it possible for people to move here and become part of the community. So, and then the last pages are just more details about the Snyder Circle. So, so that's what we're working on here. I know the city has a whole list of priorities it's working on too. And all these efforts, the RDA has a whole list. All these efforts are running side by side. We keep each other informed. But right now, this is the slice that Impact Corry has taken on, and this is where we're moving.
No, you guys aren't doing anything, Dad.
No. We nap a lot and cuddle puppies.
Yes.
Do you have any idea this much was going on?
No, not to this extent. No, I didn't. I knew there was a lot of moving and shaking. I knew that, but I did not know that it was like this project is exciting. This, the Snyder Circle one really grabs my attention. The the Corry promise. I know you don't have that one fully fleshed out yet, but I think that's brilliant. And something that I really want to see again replicated in a lot of places. Because so much barriers to even just entrepreneurship or to just getting next is bankability. People just don't have it. And
Yeah.
that is life changing. That's life changing for families.
Well, and a lot of our focus is, I failed to mention, something, imagine that, is we've worked with the Beehive Network, created our logos, we've worked with our planner, created our branding and our target markets. We are going with a steampunk aesthetic, giving a nod to the fact that we grew up as a manufacturing town, that our buildings are Victorian, but we are imbuing it with innovation. Because that's.
Live down here. They're steampunk obsessed. So
Are they?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, and that's where, those are the bones we start with. So it will be easy to move into that aesthetic. And why was I saying that? It's important.
Bench competition.
Oh,
Is that what
no,
you were
but that's
thinking? No?
important too. So,
Tyler, just a couple of things.
okay, good, save me.
Take you up though for a minute. Number one, we want to be a model community for other communities to model what we're doing. It's very rare to find a community that has reached out and hired a grant writer through the cooperation of citizens, not the government.
Development
This is not
professional,
the
I can't let it
government.
go.
You know, this is not the government. This is private groups supporting the government. In turn, the government supports the private groups. It's not easy to get that synergy.
Yeah.
It's all very, very difficult. You'll find out when you start working with different communities. Each community is made up of a different structure. Every community, you cannot look at Erie County, any one community and say it's like any other community, because they're not. They may look the same when you drive through them, but their power structures, their visions, everything else is different. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to grow the vision, because we've been able to develop all these cooperatives, and then other communities, and many of them are on the same track. Some of them, Northeast, Edinburgh, a lot of them are making progress in areas we haven't come up to snuff with. So two things really quickly. Number one, the city of Erie is not the driver for northwestern Pennsylvania, and you just understand I can say you have to, right? Erie at one point was the driver for northwestern Pennsylvania. With a $500 million budget now, which is the largest business in northwestern Pennsylvania, Erie County is the driver. The problem is Erie County just never woke with the fact that it is the driver. And through working this network of building our communities, we are on a Route 6 corridor build out. Our plan here isn't just for Quarry. As you've heard me, the city mentioned Edinburgh. We were in conversation with them. Chuck Scalise is working hard over there. He started out with us. Albion, whose manager is the husband of the Eden city manager. What I'm saying is there's a synergy across the bottom. Other communities are going to see that vision and engage. And there are other communities in the other areas that are moving forward. As Erie County embraces the role that it needs to play, they have to have cooperation with Warren and Crawford County. We have always had to have it here at Corry, because we're a multi-district county district here, a school district. Our shoppers, our workers are multi-county. And so we have always embraced that idea. Erie County traditionally has always rejected that idea. When the community college was first proposed, it was supposed to be multiple counties, Warren and Crawford especially. It just didn't happen. And I won't go into that, but it's a long history. When Emerge 2040 was built, was introduced, I helped put that program off the ground. They called it Destination Erie. I told them this is a disaster. You cannot call it Destination Erie. Finally, they did Emerge, 2040, which I sit on that board. Because the original plan was Crawford and Warren and Erie County and Chautauqua and actually Ashtabula counties. This has been innovative, conversation now. And that's really why it has kind of failed. So the new county executive will have to address that. The money's already run out. But we need that vision. And they're regrouping. The reason I bring all this up in the context of this meeting is we are a linchpin here that we have created, that we are driving this force. Now, Mayor Schember and I work together, and we have talked about, he is driving the development in Erie, etc. And the new county executive is going to have to step into a role of cooperation to bring that all together, but also to understand that we need funding. We are going to perform. You give us the money, we will perform. We'll give you back $10 of performance for every dollar you give us. And I think through this program, which I get blown away every time. It's not that I wasn't paying attention. I've been through this program.
Couple times.
It blows me away how much we have accomplished. When I say we, people in this room and everyone on these boards and our cooperation, plus a council and city manager, city administration will work with these groups. Plus a lot of volunteer groups that we haven't mentioned, the Park Board.
Yep.
And others who are very progressive. Also, the other thing, just to mention, a little pet peeve. The counseling center was developed here through sheer will by Bill McFall. And Karen has done a great job carrying on the tradition of the counseling center. It's very important for us to have those human services in the city. When Mr. Beeman took over as county councilman after I left, I fought every year for the county health center, which was co-located with Karen's organization. And he lost. And we're going to have, I think we need to readdress that, where we now have bus service on a daily basis. You can give a lot of credit to Dave Robinson and his board, Bethesda, and Jeremy, and his predecessor, who really gave us about 20 years of hard work, and now giving us a viable bus service. But even with that, it's hard for people to get services from the county.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go on for hours, but the point is, all of this is synergistic.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been able here to capture the synergy a lot of communities have. Hopefully, the new executive in Erie County will embrace what we're doing and move forward. So there's my sermon for today.
And I do
Thank
have
you for taking us to church. I appreciate it.
I have to add to that is all the things you see happening here and the large dollars you see being leveraged would not have happened without ECRA and the county, because the financial investment in small towns like this you're not going to come up with the numbers you need to leverage larger numbers. So literally, a lot of local organizations pitched into the community strategic plan, which is another reason why we're getting funded, is we actually have a plan that makes sense. They see where we're going, but without the county and ECRA stepping up in the way that they did, there'd be no way we're going after multi-million-dollar loans, I mean, grants, because they require matches. So you need someone to show faith in you to leverage the next grant, to leverage the next grant, to leverage the big grant. So we have been very pleased, and the help that we've received has been phenomenal. So I don't want to not shout out, because
Yeah, I want to just chime in on that. In fact, I'm one of the founders of that group. And the first thing I ever did was appoint Dave Sample to the board. And Dave Sample has done a tremendous job. For the board, for the region, I'm hoping that we can get him reappointed. But I also want to say that Corry Wood really needs to get the credit professionally for the professional expertise that he has grown into and built with this process. I was very skeptical when we started the ECRA process that we could get a handle on it, because it was a political football at the beginning, where certain factions in Erie tried to grab all the money. And of course, on council, that's always a fight. And the first year was kind of a disaster. The second year, we said we have to formalize this, we have to put this together. I was a little skeptical that we'd be able to be successful. But I'm going to tell you, when we brought Quarry in, it was a whole new process. And Quarry has done a remarkable job. Because the number one thing that I stressed to Quarry from the beginning is that the Erie County as a whole, not the city of Erie, not Belgrade, Corry, city, and he has always been respectful of every community, every township, and encouraged us and all of these entities to apply the ECRA for funding. Very aggressive, and the board has been very cooperative. So I second what Chuck just said. ECRA is that gaming money has been a driving force in us taking that 10% match a lot of money from ECRA and turning it into 90% federal and state money. So there's a lot of politics within ECRA. The county executive has got to go above those politics and keep that system non-political.
And one last thing that you haven't heard yet, Mayor Dave, it's actually new, is there's been a countywide effort, actually a regional-wide effort to apply for Economic Development Agency funds for the Build Back Better program. Penn State has been doing the heavy lifting on the application, but their goal is the reduction and elimination of the plastics issue.
Yes.
And we were recently, our Fiber and Technology Center was recently asked to be part of that as a regional project that will end up serving 1, 2, 3 counties and 2 states. We'll be going into New York State as well. So that project is potential for funding to be a workforce development hub for that effort. So it's not only that we're working locally with everybody, we have to work on the larger stage as well and see where we fit. In this case, we can create a vital service that wasn't part of the plan, and that helps us because we're not going to be developing the solution for plastics in Corry, but if we're part of that solution, that's great too. So we're looking for those relationships and those collaborations that result in better standard of living, more people able to work from home, the trend of the way the world's going.
Mhm.
We want to be prepared for it. So anyway,
Love it. Yeah.
so
And
thank
I sat with Penn State for a while. I was blown away by that project that you had just mentioned too. And just some of the ways that they're also bringing in, fresh food markets with capitalizing on the emissions and the energy emissions, and how that will then go back into resolving some of the food desert issues.
Yep.
It's really neat.
It
That
is a great
project.
project. All right, any last words you'd like to share with us?
I think that the biggest thing is this is going to be a collaboration. And I know that sounds like a very hokey word, but that's the end of the day. That's what it is. It's a person who is sitting at that helm, maximizing the synergies that are happening and making sure that communities aren't getting left behind, that we don't hyper focus on specific just our urban core, that we're looking, because there's an opportunity right now for regionalism. There's an opportunity now to pull in other counties and entities who are trying to build back up. I think for so long, this side of the state has just been kind of like a pass through, a flyover, and you either go to either Allegheny County or Allegheny or on your way to Philly, but you don't really stay in this region. But right now we have the opportunity to change all of that. And to make this be a place where people want to invest, they want to move, they want to stay, and not just visit during the summer months or go skiing in the winter months. I think that this could become a region that we're really changing the trajectory and becoming, like Mayor Dave had said, a model. Like, we really have an opportunity here if we maximize it correctly. We'll never see funding. I hope we never see funding like this again because of the reason we got it. I don't want to ever go through another pandemic. But if we use this right, we can change the scene. We can completely change the scene. And I think we can. But it's got to be through partnership. It's got to be collaboration. It's got to be more of this where we're working together. We're not duplicative. We're not overstepping. We're not leaving people to figure out things on their own. But how do we maximize and move it forward? Because when we're all doing a lift, the lift is way easier.
Awesome.
So
Well, thanks for spending
thank you
time with
all.
us
Thank
today.
you all. We're gonna go do some door knocking down.
All
Right now.
right.
I have a question.
Hit
Oh.
me with it. Yes.
What makes you different from your opponent?
Growing up in a rural area, watching my family struggle, being part of, I'm the oldest of 13 kids. All of us are so drastically different. I've spent my life as a therapist, as a counselor, and then as an advocate now, public servant. I have a sister who is a state trooper. I have brothers who work in manufacturing. I have sisters who are nurses. The thread that ties us all together is the public service, wanting to give back and build up our community. This is something my heart has always pulled me to. It's always, I worked for the county for 8 years. I understand the systems from the inside out, how they work and how they're not working. I'm in this for the long haul. I'm in this. I'm not going away. I am biased in the fact that I hope I win. If I don't, I will still be doing the work that I have been doing. And that is, I've served on the school board, but I've built up a nonprofit that's helping people get back on their feet. I understand the solutions, but more importantly, I see the bigger picture. I know that there has to be a collaborative effort between the private and public sector. Neither can do the lift on their own. They can't. I don't think you can tax your way out of a problem. I think that there has to be, I'm going to go back to the word that was used. There has to be that synergy that is built up around communities that's leveraging the excitement, because communities are unique. So let's not try to make everybody cookie cutter. Let's build that up. And that's what makes the county beautiful and attracts people here. This is, though, at the end of the day, about people and how do we get people to be the most successful versions of themselves, whatever that means to them. But it's about people, it's about families, it's about healing, it's about moving forward, it's about being a place that people invest, stay, live, thrive, not just pass through, visit. And that's where my heart is. It is in the rural areas where I grew up. It's in understanding the systems that have failed the urban communities. And this isn't about me, it's about us. It's never been about me. It's not, I don't know how to function in that capacity. I don't want to ever function in that capacity, But I know when there's an us in this, and when we're focused on people, when we stay focused on people, we can change a lot of things.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and there will be a link up on our Facebook page probably Monday afternoon. So this will be available for others to see. Thanks for coming.